Okay, good evening, everyone, both online and here in person at Borough Hall. I'm going to call the March 5th, 2026 meeting of the Hopewell Borough Council to order. Reggie, if you could do our sunshine statement.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by notice mailed to the Hopewell Valley News and Trenton Times, posted on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, and filed at the Borough Clerk as required by law.
If you're able, you join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Buda?
Here.
Mr. Fuller?
Yeah.
Ms. Hook? Here. Ms. Steeler?
Here.
Ms. Weaver? Ms. Valenius is excused.
First item on our agenda, we have our report of the Director of Public Works and Director of Water and Sewer. If anyone has any questions or comments, now would be the time to direct them to our administrator.
I do have a comment, actually. I saw on the report that the DPW had to fix brakes and calipers, and I asked Alan if they fixed those themselves, and he said yes. And I said, where did you fix them? And he said, on the ground outside in the cold, and told me that Mark blew a hydraulic line on the cloud or the snowstorm, and they also fixed that themselves. So saying all this to reiterate, A, how much our DPW saved us by doing the work themselves, but B, how much they need a new facility so they're not laying on the ground in the snow and the cold to do this work.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll, during our other comments section, thank them, but obviously they had a very busy couple of weeks. I'm very appreciative for the above and beyond that they went with the second major snowstorm that we received this season. Next, as we do at all of our meetings, it'll be a short one, but we always have an update on the upcoming sale and transfer of our water system to New Jersey American. There is a ordinance on this evening about correcting an easement. I'll hear a little bit more when we get to it, but ultimately that is the property rights that the borough has to have a pipe that heads up towards the northern part of town that needs to be fixed. The pipe turns out wasn't in the easement area, so we're revising the easement with the property owner to make sure it actually documents where the pipe is. So we have that, as well as an agreement to allow them to keep a shed in the easement area. Beyond that, the schedule still seems to be on track for the June-July timeframe for a turnover. Again, as we get closer, we'll have some more information about what to expect, when to expect, different information for billing, for example. But what our next round, and which may be the last round of bills for the borough, will be due in May, and the schedule continues. They'll be the last ones that we issue and pay. With that, this will be the second month, I believe, that we've revised our council liaison reports to happen earlier in the evening. But first, we do have the first of two public comment sections. Mayor and council will take comments first from members of the public attending in person, then from members of the public attending meeting via Zoom. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes for this first time, and no meeting action can be taken on necessarily on any public comment issue. If you are using Zoom, please push the raised hand button and we will recognize you and bring you over. I'll also note, while any topic is fair for questions or comments during the public comment section, there are several public hearings on ordinances tonight. So technically, if you were to have a comment on one of the ordinances that has a public hearing, it would be best to do it during that particular ordinance public hearing in a little bit, so it could be part of the record for that ordinance. I'll also note that after this, we're going to have a short presentation from our financial advisor on financial impact of pilots to the borough. And we also have a lot of extra professionals here tonight because many of the items on our list are affordable housing related. We do have our municipal planner, Joanna Slagle, here as well. So with that, I will open up the floor.
I'm, excuse me, Melissa Cookman. I have a few different things. if it's possible, especially in light of last night's meeting, it would be great if the podium had a microphone. It was really hard for people in the back to hear, and some people can't always speak up, so there was just that. I would also ask, finding information, I know the website is being redone, I know that, and we all know that, but going through the stuff about Hopewell 57, I cannot tell you how many people and how many times we've had to walk people through it and say, and then look for the little arrow. Is there a way to just put it on the front page somehow, like a link to this information? That's my.
So there certainly is. If you'd like to work with me directly, I'm happy to. I don't know if I quite understand exactly the request. Is it to, but I'm happy to work with you.
I think I can, do you want me
Please.
to? Okay. So last night what happened was we were getting a lot of questions because some of the redevelopment documents are in two different places on the website. And so there was confusion about what
Okay.
one they should be using. So Susanna has been updating everything, you know, like getting everything organized. And I think it just needs to be all in one spot.
So who, I mean, just as one who like might be doing that, who is she doing that with, or?
I'm not sure. She's been like compiling things that she noticed weren't on the website, and I think we're gonna work with Peter and everybody to make sure that what's on the website is what we're getting.
It's just so hard also because it's never in chronological order. So you have to go all the way, you're passing through all these other things, and it makes it harder, and it's hard enough to get people involved, so I would just ask that. My first question.
Well, actually, before you, just so,
Yes.
Yeah,
that
so
is in motion?
yeah,
Okay.
so Peter and Susanna and I and Candace will make sure that everything's up there and
Okay.
and we'll try to put it in chronological order, but
Or
final
not, just
names
make it so you can find it
yeah.
without
Yeah,
having to call
yeah.
10 people.
Yeah.
I don't know 10. I have a question about the traffic study that the borough required, the independent traffic study. My understanding after reading it and reading the 57 traffic study,
Melissa, we can't talk about the application or the evidence.
it's not the application, it's a question about it's a question about who hired for the independent one. The developer didn't, we did. And what was their assignment? What were they told to do?
So we'll have traffic testimony at the next meeting.
And the meeting after that.
And the meeting after that, and that's where we'll discuss it, but that traffic engineer is part of Boswell.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that answers that. Okay. So last night, there were at least 100 people here. And what many of us walked away with is that the planning board has actually no power to change anything. They are there to enforce whatever was agreed upon and to make sure that that's what's occurring. And the issues that were most expressed were as a result of concerns about, were as a result of council's decisions. We have a problem in Hopewell, as I'm sure many small towns have, and it's participation. And we have to find a way to reach everyone. People on the west side of town, they don't even know about 57. They don't know. If you're not coming to the meetings, they don't know. They're going, oh, really? What is that? Oh, we saw a sign. And that's unfair to everyone, including them. It would be good, and in the future, if the borough can reach out in a more aggressive way about these kinds of issues. 57 is the biggest thing that's probably ever happened to this town, except maybe when they closed the train. And it's the largest thing, and if you're not a regular participant coming to these meetings, which as we know, there aren't that many, oh, that's good tonight. There aren't that many, they had no idea. And those of us that attended and expressed the council meetings, when it was being all approved, the ordinances, there was a lot of concern about a fourth story. It was passed anyway, which is certainly the council's right to do that, but many of us felt there weren't enough of us to really express our concerns. And now we are stuck with a development that does not reflect our less than 1 square mile town. It's a more urban, suburban town. You can see it everywhere. You can see it in Princeton, go any city, whatever, they all look exactly like this. It affects so many residents and doesn't belong here. I know we can't stop it. It's too late to stop it. We have no recourse, but I speak for many residents expressing their disappointment and anger in the process that resulted. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, there were two other things. Two of the ordinances. Ordinance 2026-37. I don't believe Hamilton Avenue sidewalk is included. And if there is no sidewalk there, and especially
Sorry, but, back up again, what,
Resolution.
2026-37 resolution.
Resolution.
It's a resolution, I'm sorry. not a-
That's separate, just for the.
And I believe it doesn't list Hamilton as getting sidewalk, and considering with 57 coming, that's pretty essential. So I think that should be included. And then also, ordinance 912, all the pages are numbered 4, just so you know. And it prints out.
thank you for that. So for safer school, Krista, I don't know if you or Jerry want to note that my understanding that there was a list that was created several years ago as a result of some studies, and the things that are in that are essentially what's in the plan, and because of the way the funding works, that it's while we try to expand it, they're kind of rigid in the projects that were initially suggested are the ones that are.
Probably because they knew about 57.
This was before 57.
Right, so now with 57 coming, that's a lot of kids potentially walking to school from that side of the street. So they will have to cross over because there's no sidewalk. And then they have to cross back over so they can get to the crossing line. So I think it's one way or another, I think we need to get sidewalk.
No, I think that's an excellent point. I do think though, just technically for that resolution, I don't know that we can just add it,
Okay,
but message received that
Great.
that's a.
Yeah, it can't be just tacked onto that grant. but
no, I know,
Yes.
I didn't know when it was written, so I
Yeah.
just thought, that's what, when I read it, I was like, whoa.
We've learned more and more how rigid the state is. There's a
Imagine.
little bit of, they allow a little bit of feature creep, like if there was going to be, say, enhanced crosswalks that we asked for, they might allow a curve that we didn't ask for as part of it, but not much more than that,
Okay.
unfortunately. But
Well,
that doesn't
make
mean
the developer do it.
we can't work on or add safety improvements to other parts of town. Unrelated to that, so good comment, thank you.
Hi, Susan Flora, resident. So I was here last night for a long time, watching the process, have been involved in the process. And something that really surprised me. So first of all, like learning all of this in the past 2 years, getting more and more involved, it's been like a crash course, right? In local government and ordinances and how this all works. And I was really surprised last night to learn that once an application is submitted to the planning board and deemed complete, right? So that all has to happen X number, like they have to submit that and the planning board has time to review it before having the meeting to deem it complete. After that happens and the hearing is scheduled, where the expert testimony is from the traffic, from the architect, those experts don't have to submit their reports prior to the planning board meeting. So in last night's meeting, the planning board members were literally being handed designs and presentations that they had not seen before, had not had an opportunity to review. All of us were like trying to stay on top of the information based on, right, is it on this part of the website or this part of the website? All of a sudden there's new townhouse design. Like it's very, very confusing. And in the goal of being a well-informed planning board, being a well-informed public, so that these meetings don't like go on for 172 hours with people like debating which exact townhouse or curb cut is being reviewed. I did some research and there's a number of communities like Raritan, Borough, South Amboy, Heightstown, Maplewood, I think Summit does, that they actually require, once that application is submitted and approved as deemed complete, X number of days before the testimony is to be given, all those documents have to be submitted to the planning board for review, for time to consider. And that would also give the public an opportunity to read it and come to these meetings well-informed, not having to ask the same questions over and over again, which we saw last night. So I am asking the borough, what it seems to me in my limited understanding of how this all works is that you all would have to either create an ordinance or a resolution to mandate that any documents being presented at a planning board hearing on an application that's already been approved needs to be submitted to the planning board 2 weeks, 21 days before. I see Paul nodding. So I would really like for people to consider that. I think it will help all of us be more informed. It will make the planning board not feel like they're so under the gun to take a quick look. I mean, this is a real, like any development in our town, whether it's someone's home or this big building, right? We want thoughtful decisions to be made about it.
That is
So
the standard. I mean, that's when I've submitted to this board as an architect, to the planning board. It's a month before, it's a whole procedure, and it has to be deemed complete. And those drawings are the same drawings that then are presented. Now, I guess where it gets interesting is maybe there were some minor tweaks that were presented, and I think that's allowed.
Well, so be careful not to, because I'm often on I'll say the other side of this, in other towns, and some have excellent rules. I'm not specifically familiar with the ones you've cooked, but I'll use Princeton, for example. The base of this, and Joanna can correct me if I get it wrong, but the municipal land use law, the state law requires that the plans be on file 10 days before the hearing. Usually that means, as Paul was saying, that's the initial submission.
right.
That's what you put in to be deemed complete. And everything beyond that, depending on the town, usually is what's called an exhibit. And sometimes an exhibit is even like, here are the plans that we submitted a month ago, and I'm going to draw something on it live at the hearing. And that is kind of becomes an exhibit and part of the record. Now, there are things in between. And I think your comment is an excellent one. Sometimes, again, Princeton, for example, their schedule for at least for their planning board, they meet on Thursdays. If you're the applicant, you're going to show something that isn't already on file. On the Tuesday, you have to send them a PDF to town, and if you're they'll call it objective. But if you're on the other side and you're going to show something else, whether they enforce it or not, I don't know. But they have a day later or something like that for someone else to show something. It's different for different towns. Many don't have any requirement like that. I think it's a good idea, both organizationally, and maybe we could talk offline. Many of these things there is local control. Like some of those things, like there's a checklist in our ordinance. That is something that governing body does. Some of the things could be a rule adopted by the planning board, for a middle ground kind of administrative thing. Some of the things might just be well received by the planning board chair and secretary, and they might just take it upon themselves to impose different good practices on applicants. And I think somewhere in between all of those things is maybe where we should land.
And when an applicant brings something like they did last night with, like they're responding to questions and things that they're hearing. So they can't always have that exhibit beforehand because we're, like you saw last night, we're giving them direction on what to produce. So they'll come back with new exhibits, but it's on their risk because the board isn't making a decision on that exhibit last night. It's their risk that they're slowing down the process by not giving it in advance. So it's really, the risk is on the applicant for not producing things in advance.
Well, but it's also on the risk of the planning board and not.
Well, the planning board doesn't make any decisions on exhibits that they're getting handed that night. We didn't make any decisions last night.
Okay,
Right.
so I understand that you didn't make any decisions, but it sure as heck seemed to me that the planning board would have appreciated having a little more time to review things so that they felt equipped to ask more in-depth, more pertinent questions instead of what was being asked last night.
Right.
And have an example of an ordinance or a rule. It's not that hard to find examples of it. I'm not asking for more bureaucracy. I actually think this is a way to make things more efficient. And I know that everyone on council believes in information sharing and transparency, and we're all trying to get better at it. So thank you for considering it. So what are the next steps? Like what will happen now?
Well, I don't know that I think there's probably 3 different ways that this could be done. Looking at our attorney, my guess is if this were to be done by ordinance, if this governing body were to create a rule that, we're, I don't know, modifying the checklist for submissions, and now X is required, I don't know, exhibits need to be submitted Y days or something like that. That takes at least 2 months for us to do that. And there's something called the time of the application rule, which might not allow us to change the rules for an app. Hold on. But so that's one path. I think probably the better path, hearing this, again, excellent comment, is that this will get shared with everyone involved, and particularly lucky that our planner is here, and have them, I don't know, I'm not involved directly, but I imagine they would work out with the applicant a system that makes sense so things could be submitted.
Yeah, so here's the thing, I'm not thinking about it just in terms of this project. This shouldn't be thought of as just in terms of this project. This should be thought of in terms of everyone who's coming before the planning board should be held to the same standard of having their ducks in a row and getting this information to the people who are voting on it and to the public who may be impacted by it. So I'm not just speaking, this is like a systemic change that I think should happen. And I understand that it would be unfair to change the process midway for things that are currently in
It
play.
would be unfair. It might not be possible. It's really not.
Yeah, so my question is, it doesn't seem to me that this is a planner making the decision. To me, I would recommend and advocate for the borough officials to create.
I'm not disagreeing with you so much as that the two, one that, I think it comes up during a big complicated project, is because often most of what the planning board hears are homeowner applications, where there's a balance between a rigid set of rules that might cause someone to, go to the back of the line and take longer. So some thought does, and particularly with the professionals who run the meetings and run meetings like this in other towns, to find the right balance and process. And I think what we would want to do, or what I would suggest, is that this governing body be, advised by the planning board attorney planner about what a appropriate best practice would be that gets that goal, but maybe is not so rigid that we're going to catch up a bunch of, homeowners with rigid rules and be challenging for someone with a very simple application, which, so anyway, that's my take on next steps. And I think we are, I'll just say, lucky she's here for affordable housing, but Joanne is the one who knows the most about this stuff, both, what works in other towns, what other towns have done, what doesn't work. And, she's hearing this and is now charged in making sure that the loop of people, between the planning board, secretary, attorney to weigh in, and if it's something that could be, and I think it likely could be, most towns do it as a administrative item kind of imposed by the board secretary under the authority that she has, that look, applicants, here's this instructions, you need to follow these instructions. But if it needs to be an ordinance, we can do that too.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. That was good. Come on down.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jen Rogers. I am here as the Executive Director of Friends of Hopewell Valley Open Space. Tonight, I would like to ask for interest and permission for Phobos to work in collaboration with the Borough to perform a restoration project at Hopewell Borough Park. This would be part of a grant application to the New Jersey American Water Charitable Fund, and would hopefully bring about $30,000 of upgrades and effort to Hopewell Borough Park. I have a simple concept plan. May I share it with everyone? Okay. So thanks. We are looking to create connections to conservation, both in enhancing some biodiversity, providing some demonstration areas to inspire folks to maybe move their lawn into nature, and provide stream bank stabilization. And I think I said biodiversity already, but I'm just gonna say it one more time because you can't say biodiversity enough. We recognize that Hopewell Borough Park is a gem of the municipality. And that a lot of families here use both the stream, the gazebo, the playground, and that big Phragmites patch as natural play places for their families. And we would like to honor those uses, but bring in native plants again to help with some of the stream bank erosion. You'll see on the map, there's a little area highlighted around the bridge, both upstream and downstream of that, where we would propose some larger shrub and tree plantings to complement some of the work already taking place there. There is a Phragmites patch, which is a really tall grass just south of the gazebo. And again, we understand that kids love to go in there and treat it as a clubhouse. So we would like to maintain that clubhouse feature, but instead of Phragmites, which is invasive and has no beneficial value, we would put in some native plants that are hardy to children's play, and might also like to explore the idea of some wild and native plants that are edible, and then expand that into the area that I think we all know remains a saturated lawn for a good portion of the time. So we actually have some stormwater absorption going on there instead of stagnant water sitting on our lawn. And then the last color, the triangle shape, I think it's blue, I'm squinting across, would be a spot that is south of the trail that cuts across the park. And it would be what we're calling a model meadow. So that is a lawn area with some trees on the edge. We would love to plant a simple meadow design that again would bring in pollinators, but also serve as a demonstration for what folks could do on their own lawn potentially if they were looking to support biodiversity, bring in pollinators, maybe support stormwater, maybe support carbon sequestration, and just looking for interest in the possibility of partnering on this application, which also happens to be due tomorrow at midnight.
So, Jen, thank you, both for all you do in our community and for, thinking of Hopewell Borough as a way to use these funds. When we connected, I sent the proposal to our Buildings and Grounds Committee. Generally, everyone, including our public works director, seemed to think it was a good idea. Obviously, a lot of details to work out when, not if, but it's awarded with the grant. And I guess my thought was just to kind of look up and down the road here. If we got a general thumbs up, it would give me the comfort in writing a letter of support for you, and hope that you get the grant. And again, much appreciated thinking about the borough for these projects.
It's a gem. We'd love to just give it a little more color, a little more shade.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna go home and finish that grant application.
Thank you for doing
And you said you'd have a template to send, particularly if it's noon tomorrow.
The other noon. 12 p.m. a.m. But I'll get it to you by noon.
Okay.
You need tonight or tomorrow?
Tomorrow night.
I was gonna say, if it's tonight,
Thank you very much. Thank you for your support.
Lots of different definitions of you. All right, anyone else here in person, or I don't see any hands online. Happy to, again, we've got many other opportunities, but I will just make one more pass here before I take a motion to close this first public comment section. So seeing no hands raised online, I'll take a motion for.
Motion.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? All right. Next, we have, this is have all our professionals here for the most part here tonight, because we don't have anyone from engineering, but I want to bring up Brian Morris from Phoenix Advisors. We're going to try to keep this to 10 or 15 minutes. I know we've done lots of informational things in the borough, particularly with water. Some of them were 1,000 slides and 1,000 hours. We're going to try to not do that every time and have some bite-sized chunks on some smaller topics. But it occurred to some of us that there was a significant presentation in December on a tax abatement specific to the Hopewell 57 project, but there wasn't a lot of time spent talking about just the act, what happens when there's a pilot? What does it do to the borough's finances? What would it mean for property taxes, in particular with how school funding works? So we asked Brian to kind of maybe do a quick presentation for us here tonight to help us, on council understand and maybe just, perhaps answer some questions about how these things work. And also, I behoove myself not to recognize our school board representative, Mark Peters, here. Just want to thank him, just for joining us. We didn't ask him for anything in particular, but just want to thank him for all he does. Ultimately, the borough has and will continue to work with them. What I think here tonight is there are some financial benefits to a small town in a regional school district to using pilots. And one of the benefits is the opportunity to work with the school district to bring in resources that they would not otherwise have. And those discussions continue, and I want to thank Mark and Dr. Treese for continuing to meet with us as those come together. So Brian, I haven't put it's on the screen, but I haven't put it up on Zoom yet. But if you want to reintroduce yourself and
Sure.
Explain your background and your role here at the borough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me this evening. My name is Brian Morris with Phoenix Advisors. So we help the borough out with evaluating the Hopewell 57 pilot and helping negotiate some of those terms. As the mayor mentioned, we did do a presentation in early December, I think the 4th, that had a lot of information on the project specifically. This presentation that we're going to go through is more general with some figures and some borough specific information. But dig more into, as the mayor mentioned, just kind of what does the pilot mean to the borough, to the school district, to revenue, et cetera.
All right. And so I guess the things we're going to talk about tonight, one, promise to keep it short. So I'll rehash a little bit about the background of what pilots are, the makeup of how they work, why you're allowed to have them, or why they might exist. Though the main presentation for that is up on our YouTube, and we'll have a link to it if you want to rewatch that. We're not trying to rehash that so much as reference it. And Brian has helped us kind of understand a little bit how school funding works, particularly in a regional school district, how the district raises funds and how it's allocated between the 3 towns, which in a regional district where there's one school amongst multiple municipalities is very different than other situations and very unique about how tax abatements or pilots impact that positively on one hand and negatively perhaps when other towns do that from our perspective. And then what having these might mean in different scenarios on us as taxpayers.
Yeah.
So Brian, I know this was like 10 slides or 100 slides, and I know you guys could still it to like 2.
Exactly. So the next 2 slides are essentially the December presentation in a nutshell. And apologies for the text. I'm not a good presentation maker because I focus on text instead of pictures. But anyway, so just first page, pilot basics. A pilot, which stands for payment in lieu of tax, is an amount that the property owner pays to the municipality pursuant to a financial agreement instead of paying generally applicable real estate taxes on the property. So essentially, instead of the conventional taxes, it is a agreed amount, formulaic calculation, a payment in lieu of taxes. You hear the word tax abatement thrown out. That kind of infers that it's a abatement. There's no payment. That is not the case. There is a payment. It is just calculated differently and under a different statute and mechanism than regular taxes. It can be it's always on the improvement. It can be on the land or not on the land, depending on the type of project. It is also a municipal lien, just like regular taxes. If the pilot is not paid, the borough has all the legal mechanisms available to it, the same way as if the taxpayer did not pay. So the term of these financial agreements is typically 30 years. It can be less, but generally speaking, it is typically 30 years. And after that expiration, it reverts to conventional taxes, just like any other property is subject to. So the point of the pilots is to help get projects done that would be unable to deliver the financial returns necessary to both obtain private financing from banks or financial institutions to help support the project, or for the developer to put in the equity. A lot of these projects, we're talking 20, $40 million projects. It's a substantial amount of equity as well as a substantial amount of bank financing, and all the parties want to make sure that the economics work before they commit those funds. The combination of risk that's associated with some real estate projects that are mostly speculative in nature. You're building it, you don't know if there are tenants. I mean, of course, you do market studies, you have a pretty good assurance that there will be tenants, but it is rather speculative, at least compared to regular investments like the stock market, treasury bonds, etc. And the uncertainty of future conventional taxes do make these projects difficult to finance, especially when the returns are marginal or the cash flows are fairly tight. And just finally, the idea, again, is it's a market-driven solution to fulfilling needs of the municipality, like environmental remediation, affordable housing, and any other type of need that the borough may have. So this pilot program in specific, just to reiterate, the municipality keeps 95% of every pilot dollar, 5% to the county. This project will generate about $115,000 in net revenue to the borough at full stabilization. That'll increase every year over the 30-year term, and net about $12 million over the 30-year term to the borough. And again, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but this property has been generating well less than that over the last 25 years undeveloped. So the amounts are really night and day in terms of the financial benefit to the borough and taxpayers. The pilot, those amounts are $97,000 more than the borough currently receives in property taxes, and $40,000 higher than the gross taxes that the property currently pays. So again, a significant increase in the financial benefit from the property. As over time, as the developer's revenues increase, the pilot payments also increase. The prior presentation had the full calculation, but it's based on a three-pronged test. A percentage of their taxes, or excuse me, a percentage of their revenue, a percentage of otherwise applicable taxes, and a fixed dollar amount. So the borough has downside protection as well as upside benefit. And again, for the borough's perspective, the pilot provides a predictable revenue stream that can be used to offset property taxes, complete capital projects, etc. It's a long-term reliable non-tax revenue, which is very helpful, as we know, in the budgeting process for the borough.
I think this slide is meant to show, I think we said we're on the YouTube page, the full version of what you just said, which was I'm sure much longer than that, couple minutes.
And it's the town crier meeting, I almost forgot about that.
Yes. Hear ye, that is the one to look for.
Yep.
So, the next piece of this, though, that I don't think anybody got into in December when I look back at it, though, is what's the impact to our borough's financial situation? And to look at that, we needed to kind of understand how the school district raises revenue and how each of the three towns contributes to that. So maybe let's start us with this, Brian.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So just a big clarification is just how the different entities strike their budgets. And I think I touched on this maybe very, very briefly last time, but the borough is a rate-based levy. So you strike the tax rate and you apply it to all the properties. So if a property just up and disappears overnight, the borough would literally raise less revenue than it expected to raise. The school district is a budget-based levy. So it strikes its budget and then assesses that across all of the taxable properties in the borough. So the difference is the school district essentially collects 100% of what it budgets, regardless of whether or not people pay their taxes and any changes in the tax base. So I think that's just an important distinction, because there's always discussion and thoughtful saying if a new property comes into town or a big property leaves town, the school district does not gain or lose $1. It strikes its budget and collects said budget. The tax levy is subject to 2% increases, similar to the town at 2% levy cap. There are certain exceptions, there's waivers for health insurance, enrollment waivers, and there's cap banks as well, which is a little different than the municipal style budgeting, but similar. The borough operates under similar parameters.
And Brian, a cap bank would be, if they don't go to the 2% for 1 year, they could save it and then go maybe 3 or 4% the next year, but not
Right.
20% or.
Right. So very oversimplifying it, if you tax it 1% instead of 2%, the next year you can go 3%. It doesn't exactly work like that, but essentially that's the easy way to think about it. So the district is a regional district. So just getting into what exactly does that mean? So each town, Pennington, Hopewell Borough, Hopewell Township, are responsible for their percentage of the budget. It's calculated based on the property values in each town. So based on that formula, obviously, given the size of the township, they are paying about 82% of the budget. Each town's percentage changed each year. It's reset each year, and it takes into account any new values, changes in values, or any new properties that come onto the tax rolls. So again, new construction or changes in value do not impact this district's budget, again, as per my prior point, but they do change the allocation percentage.
This might be a little small here, but ultimately that chart on the top left, that's the value of the 3 towns and the percentage of the school's budget that we pay. So this is, I believe, the equalized version. And what am I calling the printed version? I'm switching here.
Yeah, it's the equalized value, which is a proxy for the market value, but it's not exactly. We have a very complicated property tax system in New Jersey, so it's a proxy for the market value, but it's not exactly the market value.
So ultimately, Hopewell Borough, for last year, was worth a total. We add up the values of all our houses and businesses. It's about $435 million. Hopewell Township is about $5.3 billion. And Pennington is about twice what we are, about $720 million. And that comes to, if you add them all up, divide it by, and create percentages, we were last year 6.7%. Hopewell Township, I think Ryan said 82%. Pennington's a little over 11%. Right. And then at the bottom left, that's from one of the district presentations. This was last year's, but their tax levy, the amount of their budget that they were going to collect from everyone taxes was $92 million. And so our 6.7% of that came to about $6 million. Is that about right?
That's correct. Yep. About 6.1, a little shy of $6.2 million was raised of that 92 million from Hopewell Borough.
And the town's tax collector, when you pay it every quarter, we collect that and the county's portion all at once, and then we pay it to the school.
Exactly. And because, again, this goes back to what I was saying before, because the town or the borough is collecting and raising those taxes and paying over 100%. That's why I mentioned why if people don't pay their taxes, it doesn't necessarily impact the school, because the borough is essentially the way, if you look at their budget, they've reserved for uncollected taxes, et cetera. They're essentially eating the difference of whatever is not paid.
And, year over year, if the value of our town went up, we built a bunch of new stuff. Someone built 5 new houses, our $435 million would go up a bit. And our percentage would go up. And if that were to happen, Brian, does the school district get any more money, or does it just change what we pay compared to Hopewell Township and Pennington?
Right. Again, so any changes, if the size of Hopewell Borough doubled overnight, your percentage of their budget would go up, reducing the percentage of the other 2 towns' budgets, but the dollar amount, that 92 million in this example, would be the exact same to the town.
So let's maybe think about that in terms of school cost increases, which, like any other budget, does certainly happen. And I know, Look at Market, they do a nice job, I think, of keeping that under control. But ultimately, I think we kind of went through an example here of 20 new kids. Brian, I think you would pick 16,000, which is kind of the hard in classroom.
Yeah, so we use in our analysis, we use the cost of classroom instruction. That's essentially the part of the budget that focuses on teachers, salaries, benefits, textbooks, classroom supplies, etc. It's kind of it's a measure of the variable cost to educate an additional child. The total cost per pupil, which is a number that gets thrown out a lot, is upwards of $20,000. But that includes a lot of fixed costs that really don't change, such as administration. You're not going to add a second superintendent because there's a couple more kids. Debt service, buildings and grounds. Again, obviously, if the enrollment doubles, there might need to be new schools and things like that. But that's absent, a significant increase like that. You're not adding, more groundskeepers, building maintenance, etc. Administration. So that's why we use that $16,000 number. And if you recall from the December presentation, we estimate about 20 new kids. So at that 16,000, it would be a potential for 320,000 in new costs. But again, that number is deliberately conservative because in an enrollment of upwards of 3,000 students, 20 is in all likelihood relatively absorbable.
So, Brian, if I were to adopt 20 kids next week and they were to be enrolled, the district doesn't get to, for this next budget, increase their budget by $320,000. They
increase by 2%.
By 2%. Okay. And then maybe take us through, if, let's just assume though that they could, or that the school costs went up, their budget went up by that amount. What's the impact of that to Hopewell Borough?
So if we did put there, just for your reference, a 2% increase for them is $1.7 million. So again, that compared to the amount, the potential cost significantly exceeds that. But obviously there's other budgetary prerogatives that 2% is meant to cover as well. But again, Hopewell Borough pays their allocated share, the 6.7% of any increased costs. So just based on that $320,000 figure, if that's what we attribute, the 6.7 is only 21,000. So essentially, if Hopewell Borough's producing 20 more kids and the cost is that 320,000, the borough taxpayers are only actually paying 21,000 of that cost. Again, that would be baked into the 2% increase because as we mentioned before, they can't necessarily just arbitrarily increase the budget by that 320,000. It would be part of the 2% tax levy. Just as a point of reference, again, just comparing it back to the pilot revenue, 116,000 is obviously significantly higher than the 21,000. So if you're just looking at it from a cost benefit analysis to the borough, the pilot's bringing in 116,000 on the municipal side and potentially costing 21,000 on the school side, which nets for a pretty significant benefit to the taxpayer. Because again, every taxpayer is paying the taxes for everyone, municipal, school, county. So it's all coming out of the same, pot.
But I guess that benefit, maybe we'll skip to the next slide though, does not account for what we're about to talk about here, though, right? So if you were to add those improvements to the borough's tax rolls, we would actually increase our pie slice and our percentage would go up. Was that?
So when we add ratables, as mentioned before, the borough's value goes up. Therefore, the borough's percentage of the school budget at 6.7 goes up. School spending does not change. The borough contributes more because of the larger percentage, and by virtue of the pilot or virtue of lack of a pilot, has no discretionary funds available. So again, percentage increases under new ratables, the percentage increases, taxes increase, school gets no additional funds. The prior slide did have an example. So of a $27 million ratable is added, that's roughly what Hopewell 57 would be. It would raise that 6.7% that the borough currently is obligated to about 7.1%. So that tax obligation we mentioned before of about 6.1, 6.2 million would go up to just shy of 6.6 million. So an extra over 400,000 of tax money would come out of the borough if this project was conventionally taxed.
And that's not money that would go to the school district. Well, I mean, it would go to school district, but that's,
It would essentially come out of Pennington and Hopewell Township. It would not, there would not be, again. Good to reiterate this point, but that would not produce more revenue. That 400,000 would not go to the school district on top of what they're getting. It would just take money away from what Hopewell Township and Pennington are paying.
and to make up for that, we would ultimately have to increase the tax rate for everyone in town to make up that $500,000.
Right, the borough's tax rate, the borough's regional school district tax rate would increase accordingly to raise that extra money.
And ballpark, with our, we're looking at a couple $100, per taxpayer, if not more.
Yes, I apologize, I don't know if I have the exact figure in front of you, but yes, you're talking about, $300 to $500 per taxpayer per year extra because of that.
And so we all would pay more, Hopewell Township and Pennington would pay a little bit less, but the school would not get any more money.
Right.
Now, that's a traditional rateable. And we'll go through the same exercise with the same thing happened, but with the pilot.
Same exercise, so the difference again is because the pilot is not included in the tax base. The borough's value goes down if it's under a pilot, or essentially doesn't change. The percentage goes down or doesn't change. Again, the amount of school spending does not increase either way. The borough's contribution decreases or does not change. But the borough has those additional pilot funds which offer flexibility. Again, as we started this discussion with, the borough council's already met with the district and discussed, ways that they can help. And we talked about it in the December presentation as well. So, those are discretionary funds that can be used upon directive. And again, just like traditional taxation, there's no additional funds coming from the school. The percentage of the borough would either decrease or stay the same, and the other towns would pay more. So essentially, it's the complete opposite of the prior slide under conventional tax.
Now, while that may be a positive for us, I guess if Pennington or Hopewell Township were to do this, it would have the same impact, but unfortunately pointed towards us, and our share would increase and theirs would.
Yeah, this information is not unique to the borough. It's any participant in any regional school, the same would hold true.
So I'm just thinking about what the impact here between the two, and what if we were to just compare apples to apples, a new house or a new project under an abatement versus not, what's the difference?
So again, commercial, conventional rateable, no additional revenue to the school district. However, the shifting of the overall tax burden goes towards the borough, away from the other entities. Under the pilot, again, no additional tax revenue to the school district, but there are discretionary funds available to assist the school district as needed, and the opposite would occur. The shifting of the overall tax burden would go away from boroughs.
So I think you mentioned Hopewell 57 would be worth about $27 million.
Right.
I know in the recently concluded litigation, our experts, do some numbers for at least one of the Hopewell Township projects that was in the hundreds of millions of dollars, comparatively. So I know we talked about this shift. This would be for us on the positive way. The pilots that exist from our neighbors do the same thing, unfortunately, in our direction, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So it just as a comparison between the two, I know every little bit helps, but comparatively, the size of ours to theirs, is there a I don't know, something you could say about the comparative size of the two?
It's orders of magnitude, right? It's we're talking about in our case, a very small amount of units compared to thousands, of units. So, I think that there's really no comparison in terms of the scope.
And ultimately, the litigation that the boroughs had brought and has since concluded, we had bowed out before the end, and knowing what the result would be, was on this subject, essentially. And, again, our financial, our experts, Brian wasn't involved in this one, but our experts for that case, calculated, what some of those projects did in our direction to be millions of dollars, I think $25 million over, the Scotch Road project over the course of that, shifted school costs to us. But unfortunately, or fortunately, just neutral as it doesn't add or subtract any funds that the school district gets. It just shifts which of the three towns pay for it. So we feel we have an opportunity to, and are working with the school district. It is a minor one. We're excited to work with them and see what makes the most sense, particularly as we understand our finances as of the water sale. Brian, for something like this, while the township has pilots that are active and revenues coming in, when would our first one kick in? When would there be funds coming in from it?
Right, no, that's a great point. So, I mean, the pilot was just approved in the winter. As we've mentioned, there's some planning board, things still being discussed. Typically after that, there's still an 18-month construction period followed by a lease-up period. So you're talking about years before there's actually children there, living there and going into the school.
So we have time to work with them to figure out what our taxpayers can afford to go above what's required.
Right. And again, just to go back to kind of the sense of scale and orders of magnitude, the school's budgets, and as we mentioned, they're raising $93 million. Your pilot's 115,000. Not obviously everything counts or everything helps, but obviously you're looking at, again, orders of magnitude, differential there.
So things that feel like we can do and are doing to help the district. So I guess pilots, allow us to, while conventional taxes do not change the resources they have, this does give us an opportunity, and we look forward to continuing to work with the district, and we hope our other municipal partners in finding a common solution to the issues the district has. Again, what our contribution will be small. Brian said, if we were to contribute the whole amount of it, that's, I don't know that the district could hire even a single teacher for if we were to, turn over every penny that we got. That's not neither the solution nor probably a fair allocation. But it's a piece will be a start, and certainly working with our partners for everyone to kind of lockstep and find a fair way to get the funds that the district might need.
Yeah, I think you had a good point. We have a good point there that it's really a collaboration, right? It's not, it needs to be discussed. You need to make sure that dealing with the needs of the school district at the time, and again, being a couple years off, but it is a collaborative effort to make sure that you're coming to a mutually agreeable and beneficial, determination at the end of the day.
So just as maybe a summary, these pilots, they, for the most part, impact what each of the towns contribute to the school district. They do not change how much the district can spend. They do not provide additional resources, nor do they lower them. We, I think I speak for everyone here, are committed to continuing to work with the school district openly about what makes sense for our taxpayers in the borough to contribute. Personally, I'm a graduate of our schools here. I'm gonna have a graduate in December. I'm cognizant of how excellent they've done and what a value it is to our community. I also aware that when my oldest graduates, we don't get $20,000 back, nor does the school district. And we expect that a calculated use of pilots can provide additional revenue that the school district might need, at the same time reduce or perhaps restore the balance of what our share of the school taxes are as between our neighbors, which ultimately was the attempt and the goal with the litigation. There may, we're in a collaborative place now. There will be other things that we will always be pursuing to ensure that our taxpayers are paying a fair amount as between the three of us. I personally don't believe currently that we are paying the fair amount in light of the abatements that the township has and the effect on the high slices. But we'll continue to work with them and the district.
Right.
And first, I got any questions or thoughts from council for Brian? I know this ended up being a lot more than 15 minutes, but appreciate the attempt at brevity.
Sorry about
No, not your fault. This is not a simple topic.
No, it brings a lot of clarity, I think, to the situation, to understand, that the amount the school gets, it stays the same no matter what, and the fact that, this shifts a lot of responsibility from the township to us as a result of their pilots. I think that's a really relevant point at this juncture.
I don't know, we were necessarily gonna do this, but since we have you here, we've got lots of other public comment sections. I don't know that we're gonna make Brian wait till the next one. Maybe if anyone has a question for Brian now, we'll maybe take one or two and then let him leave, and not wait out to the end of the night.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely.
Certainly, if anyone does, would like to ask something, which is not often that we have our financial advisor, here.
Can I ask a question?
Please, come on up.
Sorry to.
Yeah, well, if you could just, hold
I
on.
appreciate this a lot.
Wait, hold on, just wait till you get to the front so we can try to get you on camera. So there we go,
Hi.
gotcha.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, Olivia Boyle. Hi, half of you I know, the other half I see at Chubby's all the time. How you doing? This is very helpful, also a lot of information for the 10 minutes that we just had. I wish, is that available online as well?
We'll put it up, yeah, we'll have both
Study and-
the video of this and then we'll put the PDF of this up. So.
I guess I have a few questions, but I'll start with, when do you have to agree with the schools if you decide to give anything to the schools? Like, as you said, you have a couple of years.
You have a couple of,
Kids go in.
the couple of years till kids goes in, there's really no set date. I mean, it could be anything. It could be, a year by year arrangement
So you
that you could
can
change
change
every
it.
year. It could be a long-term arrangement. There's a number of different mechanisms and things that the council could do. So there's really no, set date. It's not like if we cross a date, then it's done. It could be a ongoing thing.
And I guess you are the one that advised all of them to sign for a pilot when cracking, like this is a lot, and you guys have a big responsibility. I'm sure you studied and did the research, but.
So my job is to help review the pilot, educate the council and along with other professionals, with the redevelopment attorneys, what have you. Help in the negotiations, help make sure the terms are what the council wants. Ultimately we make a recommendation that it's, we think that it's the best, potential offer at the table.
That you're gonna have,
Right.
that part was clear, like the town gets money that won't get otherwise, right?
Right.
Okay, the rest I would like to read and study. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Maybe just another way to look at it, obviously, we talk about pilots with the tax abatement, which means you're not paying taxes, but you pay the payment in lieu of taxes instead of that. Would some of the concepts we're talking about here, obviously minus the revenue, still apply if it was a nonprofit or a church? If it was just removed as a rateable, like a large project, would that have that same positive impact on our school ratio that seems to be driving so much of the financial benefit for us?
Well, it would have the impact on the formula side of things, but of course the pilot funds, the revenue, which we referred to a couple times, discretionary, funds available to the borough would not exist in those scenarios because those entities aren't paying taxes. They're completely exempt. So they're not here, as I mentioned at the start, even though we use the word tax exemption, tax abatement, they are paying something instead of taxes. So it's kind of a happy medium.
So I guess, maybe to put it another way, if we collected no payments in lieu of taxes, and just took a property of this size off the tax rolls, that seems to have that $500,000 annual benefit, we would still have that, right? So if we collect $0, in lieu of taxes, we would still have that
Sure.
financial benefit of $500,000.
Right.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else have questions?
Mark, you said you want to say anything?
You're up.
Yeah, all right. Hi, Mark Peters. Do I have to like swear I'm gonna tell the truth with this one or not? Okay.
We believe you regardless.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you guys, first of all, appreciate the support just with the school district, and I understand that you guys have had to make some challenging decisions about some things. I would ask maybe a couple questions. First one would be, and you don't need to answer them. First one would be, I guess the hope would be, we know the financial situation with the pilot program is not gonna be a ton of money. I think I would encourage us to think about the debt relief money and how that could potentially be used. I think the district as a whole is very open to unique ways to do things with money. You know, we're not asking for a lot. So appreciate any consideration on that. Second maybe comment I'll just make is, I can't agree more with what the mayor has said about making it more fair and equitable with our shares. By a magnitude of many multiples, the pilot programs in the township is bringing in a significant amount of money. And the best example to tell you why is they're handing us $16.2 million, right? Right off the bat for the Bear Tavern expansion. So they have a lot of money there. And the hopes is that similar to Hopewell Borough, we're going to be working with the township to ask for more money. But without going into too much detail, we know that's got some work there left. Yeah, I think the third piece, I'll just maybe make one or two comments about the pilots, which I think everybody in this room has heard me go on my rants about pilots, so I don't have to do that. But in general, I think one of the challenges with the regional school districts that these pilots bring to the table is single-fold is on the types of children that are coming in. We know that we have a really good district for special education. Paul Lentinardo, who is a Hopewell Borough resident, does a terrific job running that. And we typically are a magnet for kids that need more help, whether it be inside the district or outside the district. And because of a lot of very poor legislation at Trenton level, we are required to make those sorts of financial arrangements when we have these children. So what does that mean? If a pilot program, no matter where it is in the valley, may say, hey, we have 20 kids that are coming in, if a percentage of those kids require a significant amount of additional help, that is a huge cost burden that comes to the district. That's not seen in the current year budget, but then we have to address for it in the next year budget. And that's a big driver of that today. The second piece of that has to do with transportation for the children. And this is another one of those things where we don't feel it until the next year. And again, second and third layer of the poor legislation in Trenton, transportation companies now can just up their rates every single year, and that's growing at about 7 to 8% a year. So when we have to redistrict or rebus or add more bus routes, that's a significant cost burden as well, which you don't see in current budget, but you see in future year budgets. So it's a challenging situation. I think overall, right, I've tried to share this publicly, and I'll just share it here publicly. The decision that had to be made for that to happen was a challenging one, but at the end of the day, we could have been forced into it and it would have been a lot worse, right? And that whole builder's remedy situation that exists here in New Jersey, again, more legislation that's fundamentally broken that needs to be fixed. I can't say that enough. Forces us to make these really tough decisions. And then we create an environment where we have a lot of animosity, a lot of upset people, but at the end of the day, sometimes it has to be done. Regardless of all of that, I just hope that as a town, we can continue to talk and work together on these things, not just from a district level, but more or less from just you have a lot of people that really care about the town and we can all talk more. I think we could be more abundant in our communication both ways, not just for elected officials, but the other way from the folks in town to us as well. So just appreciate what you guys are doing. I know it's not easy, and thank you for the continued support.
Thank you, Mark. Mark, thank you. Brian, thank you.
No more questions? Last call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Next, on our agenda, and again, still looking for feedback on this. We think it's been a net positive, but we've moved our liaison reports earlier into the meeting, tends to generate diverse topics of interest to not wait till the end of the night for announcements. Gosh, I feel like I'm used to surprising people, and I'm going to do so again. And Chair, are you okay to go first?
I'm ready.
All right.
I said that and then I'm not. I'm ready. EDC is welcoming a new member. I see one of them in the back. It's very exciting. Yeah, thank you for your future service. And also Jill Farmer will be joining the EDC. There's some really exciting new ideas. Leo has some very cool ideas for some murals, bringing some more art to town. There's some discussion about Broad Street banners, which I know, Deb, you are a fan of. You know, some small towns will have welcome to downtown Hopewell banners on the street pole. So some really cool discussions of things. And I feel like their new members are bringing some great energy. So I'm excited to see what the 2026 plan will be. Fire department had 27 calls in January, and I don't have the EMU numbers, but Ryan and I were lucky enough to attend the fire department's awards dinner that they hold every year. And it really is an amazing group of volunteers. There was people who were, 10, 15, 20 years of service. And if you're familiar with the Novak family, they're like fire department royalty. I think right now they have 3 generations of Novak serving. John Novak Sr., 75 years old. I think his lifetime call number is like 7,500 calls. It was something really incredible. So I know there's been a lot of talk about community lately, but that's one of the things I think about when I think about communities, people who are serving, and Dave Sylvester and I right this very minute have fire people at our house because there's a gas leak apparently. So yeah, it's just a wonderful department. I can't say enough about that. Shade Tree, Jerry's gonna talk about some really awesome work he's been doing on securing a grant for us. I won't steal your thunder, but forestry plan is hopefully moving forward. And thanks to the Shade Tree Committee for reviewing the landscaping plan for 57 Hopewell. That was really helpful, and just having another set of eyes to look out for our community and treescape.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Paul, want to go next?
Yes, so I attended the senior advisory board, and it was my first meeting, and it was a nice group of people, and talking about a lot of senior issues. Interestingly enough, a lot of the people on that board, or a good amount, are historical buffs. You probably know the town crier. And they mentioned the visitor center at Washington Crossing. People know about this.
Wonderful.
Yeah, being constructed. It's supposed to be ready, I think, for Memorial Day, but looks like that may not happen. So I think they're shooting for maybe July 4th or another time. So we talked about some seminars and things to keep seniors active in lectures and history, and they even asked me to talk about architecture from a historical point of view, and I said yes. Coming up. And speaking of seniors, and being part of the community, Ryan and I talked about accessory dwelling units. And Princeton has kind of taken the lead on this, and I'll be working on that to make that, hopefully, we'll be making that an ordinance to not, right now it's a variance. And the reason how it ties in, why it ties into seniors is the whole idea is if you have a garage or a barn or something, that you could have your elderly parents living on the property with you, or whatever. On the other end of it, your young son or daughter that can't afford to have their own apartment because of the rising rates. So this keeps, and this is another way of building a borough. So we do this in small ways as opposed to bigger ways. So excited about that, making that
That's a great thing.
become a
Reality.
real thing and making it more user friendly. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Paul. Chris?
The Mercer County Vision Zero Steering Committee met in February to discuss policy, which is really no small feat considering the difficulty of navigating any interjurisdictional policy, let alone one that aims to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries. The committee consists of representatives from municipalities within the county that range from transportation and law officials to advocates and elected officials. And I just wanted to say thanks to Mercer County and the Greater Mercer Transportation Management Association for all of their efforts as we work to ensure that the policy will be effective, attainable, and work for all municipalities in the county. Secondly, residents on Columbia Avenue circulated a petition and sent it to council requesting that the intersection of Columbia and Seminary be made into a four-way stop. There are two past reports recommending traffic calming interventions to that location, one being the PVSAC Secondary Roads Report, which recommends a mini roundabout there. The second would be the school travel plan, which was created by the transportation planning professionals at the GMTMA. And that one recommended raised crosswalks at that location. The petition was brought to council due to complaints about speeding on Columbia Avenue, as it is used as a cut through, and it is a popular crossing point at that intersection for students who are walking and riding their bikes to and from Hopewell Elementary School. Consideration should also be given to the expected increase in traffic volume there once the bistro opens. The aforementioned options, the mini roundabout and the raised crosswalks, are very effective at traffic calming. However, they are expensive and include vertical elements that would be in the roadway. Stop signs are inexpensive, easy to install, and do not contain any on-street vertical elements. And also, the borough engineer has approved making the intersection a four-way stop.
Excellent. No, thank you for that, Krista. Thank the residents who brought that forward. Our administrator for jumping on it so quickly and getting it to Canvas for a review. So looking forward to advancing that with all the stakeholders in the area. Much appreciated for everyone's efforts on that. Wonderful.
No, we should be ready to go as soon as council's ready. Everything is lined up.
Anthony?
Well, I'm not sure I'm used to waiting so long to speak.
Used to be able to.
Fantastic, I know, absolutely. So the Board of Health report, the Greater Mercer Partnership for Public Health is hosting a community advisory board at Capitol Health on 17th of March. As ever, I plan to attend on behalf of the borough. Tonight, we'll have the second reading of Ordinance 909 to add alternates to the board. As you may remember, this was actually at the board's request. I will admit, in all honesty, the board does not have candidates for the alternate positions, so we'd welcome recommendations and nominations for those two seats if approved tonight.
Right.
And then finally, the board is going to meet again in April, and hopefully after that meeting, we'll have some details of the specific initiatives that they want to conduct in 2026.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mhm.
Is animal control fall under the Board of Health?
Yes.
Can you, we will take it offline. I have a cat colony question for you.
Okay.
And why cat colonies are somehow exempt from anyone saying they can do anything about it.
Might be a good offline conversation.
Yeah.
Comes down. All right, I'm next.
Yes.
All right, so the Recreation Committee has been meeting quite a bit over the last month, and after much back and forth, and we have approval from Mayor Ryan Kennedy, the council, the library, and the Recreation Committee themselves. Our mailer will be going out on Monday. Very excited to announce that we have a new Recreation Committee member. Ethan Unick has joined us. So we're very
Technically, that will happen slightly later in the meeting.
Yeah, technically, yes, but he's stepped up to hopefully become a member if approved. And then planning is underway for June 6th, which is a planned celebration to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the country's founding, as well as the 135th anniversary of Hopewell Borough. So you'll see some information on your flyer and more information to come. We're going to have a lot of history. We're going to have Castle Lane. We're going to have the pig roast and lots of fun stuff for families, kids, adults, everything. So everybody mark that on your calendar. Should be a fun event. The library board met this week on Monday. They're busy planning for all their spring events. So as usual, they have wonderful things going on. So everybody should sign up for their emails and keep up to date on everything. And then buildings and grounds, I was looking forward to partnering with Phobos for, and other grants that Jerry's been working on for working on the playgrounds, paths, and other buildings, keeping up to date. That's it.
Couple of updates from Councilman Millennius. The green team, they're working on setting up a new monthly date for their meetings, so as not to be at the same time as, some planning board meetings. Open Space, has not met, will meet later this month. And downtown Hopewell has scheduled the annual mocktail crawl, so save the date for that, Saturday, May 9th. I'm gonna switch to mine. A bunch of ribbon cuttings, excited. Perspective one on the 20th, Master Plan Investment Group on 14 Mercer at noon. Kenita Bullock, was the new owner of that building. Excited to welcome her business, into the borough. Participating in one on March 7th. It is, admittedly a little further from the borough. There was some confusion about which part of Hopewell they were in. It is the part of it that is a Pennington address and Hopewell Township at the Pennington Shopping Center, but I'm going to be there nonetheless. American Kick is joining the Hopewell much greater Hopewell community.
Kick or cake?
Kick. No, it's not things to eat. It's things to be trained in kicking.
Karate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then join Mayor Chait from Hopewell Township. Again, our borders don't mean a lot when it comes to our business community. So Core Sports Medicine did a ribbon cutting just outside of town at 73 Princeton. That's the office building just outside of the borough. I also want to shout out, if you drive by it at night, slowly, of course, as you're leaving town. I want to thank the Dark Sky Hopewell folks. Night and day, no pun intended, difference in that building and reduction in light pollution based on what our Dark Sky volunteers have done in engaging with that business owner. It's a great example of what can be done even before we change the rules and make things mandatory. They worked with that owner to really some beautiful changes. Sherry said we joined the fire department their dinner. Congratulations to all of their awardees this year. They got a wonderful group. Mayor's office hours will be the 14th. Was here yesterday. It's every 2 weeks on Wednesdays. They'll note the next or upcoming Wednesday, and always check the website, but I'll keep announcing in advance. April 1st is a Wednesday. That's the spring break week where a lot of our borough meetings have been moved to other dates. So make sure you check the website that planning board and council are not meeting that week because of spring break and Passover.
What is the date of the council meeting?
It'll be the 6th. That's the Monday following, April 6th. I want to thank everyone who came out to the many planning board meetings this month, but in particular the 18th planning board meeting and came to our DPW tours. More information that could be on the website. Video of the meeting is up on our YouTube channel from the 18th and the presentation there. Our team is working on revised plans based on the feedback that we got from some neighbors in those meetings. Over the next month or so, the goal is to finalize the plans in the next, for in the April timeframe. Hopefully by the time of our April 6th meeting, I'll say April 6th enough times that hopefully I'll remember that's what the date is. I want to thank our DPW, again, another big storm, and they, again, hit it out of the park. Really appreciate everything that they do. I want to thank Phobos. They were here earlier for the grant opportunity for the park. Also want to thank Satellite Conservancy as a similar project. I believe some of the rough details I sent to everybody by email. I'm hoping if anyone has an issue with me doing a letter of support, let me know, but I would love to support them in their efforts to get funding for their projects as well. Again, a reminder that there's a lot of unusual dates for the April meetings. Monday the 6th for council, Wednesday the 15th for planning board, again, to avoid Passover, at least the first couple days of Passover and spring break. We will be introducing our budget in April. I want to thank for everyone who's working on that so far, particularly one of the things we'll have tonight, but our personnel committee has done some work and made some recommendations for we think appropriate increases for our staff. That'll be a resolution packet tonight, doing that in advance of the budget so that that can be entered into the PERS system in time, but appreciative of the thought that went into that from the committee. I'll note, not announcing any different locations, but I want to thank everyone who's been to the recent planning board meetings and has expressed concerns or suggestions about setting up the room. We're looking at some alternatives for future meetings. I'm not in a position to announce anything in particular. If the locations change, and I think it's most likely that the April 15th meeting would be at a different location, they'll be announced and noticed to everyone. But just want to thank everyone who's thinking about that and giving us suggestions. Deb and I were here yesterday, early afternoon, putting out additional chairs and trying to do with what we've got, and we'll make do with what we can, but certainly heard loud and clear that sometimes more is needed, and certainly working on that. And thanks to Hopewell School District, of course, for working with us on making some space available. There is a new sunshine section of the website where a recent change in law about notices allows certain things that used to go to newspapers that no one see to be put on websites. Well, we've created a kind of a one-stop section on the website, /sunshine, and there's a link several places at the top, kind of next to pay your taxes or find the agendas, that will be a place where you can find all of the notices for everything essentially going forward. That's a new, I guess, attempt by the state to modernize and honestly respond to the lack of real newspapers for the most part by creating that as an option. I want to thank Paul, he mentioned, but for taking a leadership role on the accessory dwelling ordinance. It's something a lot of residents have asked for. A lot of residents have gone through it, but with variances and spent a lot of money that we'd like to figure out a way to have it work more reasonably. I know Sherry, thank you for taking the lead on that 5-year tax abatement ordinance. If you recall, about a year and a half ago. And again, our planner's here. We should have her here every night because a lot of things that she helped with. We declared the entire town as an area in need of rehabilitation, and that allows us to have a kind of economic incentive program called the 5-year tax abatement, where we can help businesses or possibly homeowners not pay extra taxes, frankly, as a thanks for improving their property. So we are working on that. Had a nice meeting this past week with the watershed and attended part of their conference until the power went out at my office and could not watch it any longer. But I want to thank the watershed for their leadership and again working with us proactively on some projects going forward. Lastly, I've gotten several residents complain or make comments. They're all respectful. Complaint's not the right word. I would have complained. They did not. They were very respectful about it. But everyone may have noticed, particularly with the snow melting, piles of orange bags from the Town Topics newspapers, kind of at times indiscriminately shared throughout the town. I'll say I personally am appreciative of the work they do, particularly covering it in Princeton. Local news is hard to come by. They don't cover much of Hopewell, and honestly, they're everywhere and kind of a bidding. There's not been a lot of discretion or discrimination, I suppose, in them being delivered. So we did speak with them. They were very receptive to tightening that up. There is an opt-out system that they have, and we'll share that on a website post soon. That'll go out this Sunday. But if it lands on your doorstep or near your doorstep or in front of your house and it's not what you'd like, we'll have the information to turn that off if that's what you'd prefer. Yep.
One other thing. So, last Thursday at this time, I was 3 hours into the required New Jersey Planning Board meeting. It was a 5-hour virtual seminar, 5:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. And I passed the test at the end.
Congratulations. Jared?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just touch on a few items. There's a lot of items on the agenda. So I'll give a few highlights as we maneuver our way through the agenda. If you have any questions on anything I don't touch on, I'll happily entertain them at that time. First, the community management forestry grant, community forestry management plan, is in process. You have 2 resolutions tonight. The first one is authorizing me to execute the grant application, and the second one is appointing Gracie and Harrigan to do the inventory study that's required. That grant application is for approximately $20,000, and the inventory study costs about the same amount of money. That resolution on the inventory study is contingent on the receipt of the grant, which I expect to get. It's a non-competitive grant, generally speaking, so we should have that. There is a 25% match of $5,000, but that can be satisfied through in-kind work, whether it's through, my work, anybody in DPW that helps, or anybody in staff that helps. I've been advised that most communities find a way to get a significant amount of that 25% just through in-kind work, and I don't expect really a significant amount of money to have to be outlaid to satisfy the requirements of this grant. We haven't done this in quite a while, so this will be a step that first time since about 2018. We've applied for this grant. It was applied for back then, but then not followed through at the time. So we're going to move forward with that. On the tree front, I submitted recently the application for Tree City USA designation. We have a history of doing that, but then I think there have been a few years where that kind of lagged off. So that application has been submitted. So I want to thank Alan and DPW and Diane in finance to help me gather all the information necessary to put that forward. Second, we talked about the Safe Routes to School resolution that's on. That, just for reference, is for preliminary engineering to the tune of about $295,000. No construction imminent. The project not anywhere near being started yet. This is very preliminary work. But as we phase through this, there's going to be various resolutions authorizing various steps in the process. As the mayor accurately mentioned previously, there really is no practical way to change anything we're doing with this grant. The grant as submitted has to be done that way with very few exceptions. Again, it doesn't prevent us from doing other work, but just not with this grant. I'll talk a little bit about our lead paint compliance law. Sometime around 2024, early 2025, you hired Mainline Environmental to manage the lead paint compliance here in the borough. That's applicable to single-family units and two-family units that are being rented out that were built before 1978. There's 86 qualifying homes in the borough that fit that designation. I'll just say that our compliance is less than ideal at the moment. So Mainline has reached out to us. They're going to do some outreach to the people who have not been compliant at this point. The residents do pay that consultant to do that inspection. They're going to send out letters that we've read and approved that offers them a $50 voucher to maybe entice them to move forward. And they're mailing that at no cost to us. They're doing that on their own. Lastly, I'll just touch base on the budget, add a little bit to what the mayor talked about. We had a couple finance committee meetings over the last month and a half. My goal going into it and talking with Diane was to produce a budget that was, number one, first and foremost, responsible, meets the needs of the citizens and the residents of this community, and produces a very low or flat budget increase. We are at the point where we're comfortable with a flat percentage from last year. And most importantly, we'd be doing that without any gimmicks. We're doing it in a responsible manner. If there were any gimmicks required, we wouldn't be proposing it. But we're in a financial situation where we can accomplish that within reason. Big budget item, obviously, on everybody's mind is the water sale. Just for frame of reference, we are producing the budget and going to introduce a budget. As if that's not happening, we're budgeting for the debt service at this point. When that money comes in, when the sale closes, we'll accept that money and just follow the budget law and how we put that money to pay off the debt and add that in as an item of revenue. But for now, it's to budget as is, as status quo. If we needed to, we could probably get approval from the Division of Local Government Services to add that as an item of revenue based on what we know is going to happen. But given our financial situation, it's really not worth the hassle of going through that process. So we expect to introduce the budget at our next meeting in April, and then adopt that budget in our first meeting in May.
Good. Thank you, Jerry. Next item on our agenda, we've got minutes from our February 5th meeting. I'll take a motion, or first, any comments or changes?
Yeah, I have, well, maybe the most narcissistic edits so far tonight. So it says ordinance 909 was adopted on motion of Mr. Buda, actually it was myself who moved ordinance 909 first reading.
Okay, what page is that?
Um,
Or- No,
on page 2.
Page two.
Which, again, as the Board of Health, that
Yeah.
certainly makes sense.
Yes.
Yes, was fully in your purview. With that, perhaps I'll take a motion with that, change.
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Buda,
Yes.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Ms. Hook,
Yes.
Ms. Steeler, Ms. Weaver.
Yeah,
All right. The next item is second reading public hearing on ordinance 909 to add several new positions to our Board of Health. Reggie, if you could read by title.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 17, Board of Health, Section 2-17.1, appointing.
Again, this will expand the opportunity of roster positions on our Board of Health. And Anthony, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to say that the intention here is to make sure that the board can always have a quorum. We've got at least 2 professional academic epidemiologists on the board, and between that and the fact we're all busy, it can be hard sometimes to make sure we have the right number of people in the meetings. So this will help us, assuming we can obviously identify alternates, then this will help us to make sure the meetings are always quorate.
I will open the meeting to the public for the public hearing. Questions, comments, anything you'd like to put on the record on ordinance 909, that'll be the time to come to the front. Or if you're online, push the raise hand button. I am seeing none in either. I'll take a motion to close the meeting to the public for the public hearing.
I move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I will seek a motion to adopt ordinance 909. I would like to.
Yes, I move.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
That's Councilwoman Steeler, thank you.
Mr. Buda,
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Ms. Hook,
Yes.
Ms. Steeler,
Yeah.
Ms. Weaver.
Yes.
So the next 2 ordinances, which we will also have public hearings on, are related to our our affordable housing plan. Since we do have our planner here, I'll invite her when we get to the exclamation point to chime in a bit. So the first one is ordinance 909, second reading of the public hearing on our affordable housing requirements ordinance. 910. Apologies. Glasses do help. If you would read by the title.
Ordinance 910 of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, addressing the requirements of the Fair Housing Act and Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, and amending Section 10A-4.4 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975, regarding development fees.
Since we do have our town planner, Joanna Slagle, here tonight, if you want to say a few words about this one, and I'll invite that again on our next ordinance.
Reggie, was that development fees or the affordable housing ordinance?
The
Nine
housing
ten
requirements.
is affordable housing.
Yes, not the fees.
So, the affordable housing requirement ordinance is basically a template ordinance that we get from the state. And what it does is if and when the borough gets a, affordable housing unit to administer, there are requirements by the state on how those units are administered, how they're income verified, what size they have to be, all sorts of things. It's called UHAC, the Uniform Housing Affordability Control regulation. And so really what this ordinance does is just say, we accept UHAC, this is what UHAC says, and we're gonna abide by it. So it's a little formulaic, it's long, but it's really a template that we get from the state that we have to use.
I will open the meeting to the public for any comments and a public hearing on ordinance 910. In person, please come to the front. No, please come on up.
Butcher Robert. The affordable housing side, have we taken into consideration, with the affordable housing, to being able to have the actual tenants have equity in the affordable housing program? Where, just like in Brandon Farms, if you were to stay for 25 years, it'd be fair market value to actually give them a leg up.
Sure, so, the borough doesn't have for sale, affordable units. All the affordable units that are proposed in the borough are rental.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so right now we don't have that opportunity, but, there are regulations to capture just that, and that regulations have recently been changed to provide that equity base for those who are occupying those for sale, units, so they can get something out at the end of their term.
So is that regulated by the council on saying we need to have a certain amount where?
No, that's regulated by the state.
So our plan is kind of agnostic to it, like for new projects that would come in, we don't have the ability to require one versus the other, I don't
Right.
believe. But
So,
we would
so if
certainly
a for
welcome-
sale unit became available to the borough, we would have to follow the state regulations on that.
Okay, so it's up to who to determine if there's going to be for sale units available.
It's
Yeah.
typically up to, whoever's developing those units. So whatever developer or person who's going to commit to producing those units will have that ability to say, I'm gonna do a for sale, or I'm gonna.
So the borough couldn't have influence in saying we would like to have 10% of the town's affordable housing actually go to people so that they can get on like up and running. Okay, and then my second question is there a penalty has to be paid by the borough for not hitting the affordable housing number? Is there any type of like, what is the penalty if we don't do that?
I'll try and then
You want me to try? Okay.
correct. I mean, there's two pieces, I think, layers to that. First is if we did not have a plan, there's no monetary penalty, but the penalty would be a loss of zoning protection, where the immunity we have from developers suing us and forcing us to build or change our zoning to allow their projects, we would lose. That's kind of a penalty. The second piece, which is not there, but ultimately the state requirements are to plan for housing and to zone for it. So as often happens, particularly in other towns who are looking at their prior round plans, they'll get halfway through or the end of their, say, third round, and their plan was to have X units, over here or over here, and they don't have them built. There's not really a penalty for that either, because the town's requirement is to have it be a possibility or to change the zoning to allow it. They're not built, and I think some towns almost prefer it this way. They're towns who are looking to have immunity, frankly, and not have things being built probably would maybe secretly celebrate allowing it, but it not happening. But to my knowledge, there's not really a penalty for that either. The affordable housing plan is meant to remedy unconstitutional exclusionary zoning, and once the zoning is in place to allow it, that's as far as things have to go. Right?
Yep, no, you're correct. The penalty for not producing it is, there's cumulative obligations. So if you don't produce it in the last 10 years, it adds to your total that you have to produce going forward. So it becomes sort of you want to be able to produce so that you're not always carrying that obligation.
So there's no penalty for having that obligation carried out.
There's no penalty other than, the big one is losing control of your zoning to developers.
If it was zoned, so you guys, the planning board and you guys selves create the zoning, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so I guess for future developments, do we have a plan? Is there a plan that shows where the affordable housing is
Yes.
going, and that's gonna be like a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan?
Right, so they're based on rounds every 10 years. The planning board and the borough approved their affordable housing plan, as with the rest of the state, last June. And so we've actually just gotten compliance certification on that. So what we're doing tonight actually is what the state requires to do to finish out our affordable housing plan.
But there's no rush, like we can really take our time to.
No, there's set timelines in
Oh.
the fair.
Or not
housing.
penalized.
We're not penalized, no.
So we could take our time and really be thorough.
So I'll,
Do you mean for the affordable housing plan itself?
Yeah.
That's already adopted. That was adopted last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was a deadline. It had to be adopted by June 30th of last year, all the towns.
So for the future developments for affordable housing, can the council make it a requirement that the developer creates a scenario where the tenant has the opportunity to get equity into what they're doing,
so
in what they're
I'll
renting?
let Joanna maybe speak up if we're allowed to force it. We may be permitted to encourage or suggest, particularly since most of our opportunities going forward will be ones where a property owner would come to us and negotiate with council, essentially what they'd like to do, and there's an opportunity for a back and forth there, I think. I'll note, and this is not disagreeing with you necessarily with the benefits of home ownership. I think the thinking on the affordable housing side has shifted back and forth wildly the last couple of rounds. The prior round, the last 10 years was very focused on that rentals was somehow better. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. Unfortunately, though, some of the attempts at for sale or applicant owned affordable units have not been particularly successful. And I think a big part of it is that the rules don't really allow the homeowner to keep much of the equity really at all. I mean, I'm not saying it's taken from them, but there are caps essentially on it. And so a traditional home investment there appreciates.
I'm aware my brother-in-law is a part of the program. So it was a good thing for his family when at 25 years they were able to. So and I guess it also parlays into the community that we're in. We have people here that we see all the time and they're in our community for years. In a rental situation, you're gonna have about 2.5 to 3 years of turnover. So you're not gonna continue to get that same community feel and see their kids grow up and see the different neighbors that are just traditionally gonna be in the neighborhood. So yeah, I think giving people an opportunity for a leg up and being more a part of the community for a long term would definitely benefit what Hopewell's about. So thanks.
What is your name?
Dr. Robert. MOPP here.
Anyone else on ordinance 910? This is on the adoption of the state required for housing requirements. Seeing none in person or online, I will take a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 910. Do I have a second?
Okay.
All in favor? Next thing, a motion to adopt ordinance 910.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Buda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Hook? Yes. Ms. Steeler? Yes. Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
All right, next we have ordinance 911, second reading, public hearing, it's on affordable housing development fees. Reggie, if you could read the title.
Ordinance 911 of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, addressing the requirements of the Fair Housing Act and Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, ensuring the borough's compliance with its affordable housing obligations, and establishing a new chapter 13A entitled Hopewell Borough Fourth Round Affordable Housing Requirements of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
Start planner again to give us a brief explanation on this one.
So this is what's known as a development fee ordinance. The borough actually already has a development fee ordinance. We just haven't really participated in the program through the third round, and there's been a lot of changes. So this is actually a repeal and replace of your existing development fee ordinance to come up to the current regulations and the standards that are imposed by the state. And really what a development fee ordinance is, it's a percentage of assessed value on residential and non-residential development in the state. And what that money does then, it goes into, much like a open space trust fund, it goes into an affordable housing trust fund. And that money can only be used to the benefit of affordable housing within the borough. for things like helping provide assistance to low and moderate income families, for rental assistance, for creating new affordable housing units, for a variety of programs. So this ordinance just really triggers that ability to collect those fees. The borough has previously had a development fee ordinance, and didn't really have a lot of development that rises to the level of collecting those fees. There's thresholds to do that. But you can still use any money you collect for things like administration of affordable housing and preparing resolutions and doing things like that. So it's good to get it back on the books and get it active again.
Is that why it's all zeros because it's brand new? Or because
So when we get to the spending plan, yeah, I'll run through that because
Okay.
it's a little confusing, but yes, so if we had fees, that plan would have numbers in it.
Got it, okay.
I will open the meeting to the public for a public hearing on ordinance 911. If you're online, push the raise hand button. I'm seeing no one in person or online. I'll take a motion to close this public hearing. Have a second. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, like a motion to adopt ordinance 911. I move.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Buda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Hook? Yes. Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Booth?
Yes.
Keep the ordinances going. Next ordinance 912, second reading public hearing on our slight change in store hours of operation for cannabis dispensaries in the borough.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, New Jersey, concerning Class 5 cannabis businesses in the borough and amending Chapter 12 zoning and Chapter 20 cannabis businesses of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
This one came at the request of one of our businesses, our operator in town, to have the hours of operation match what the rest of the shopping center that they have there, I believe until 9 p.m. We'll open the meeting to the public on ordinance 912. If you're in person, come to the front. If you're online, press the raise hand button. I'm not seeing any, so I will take a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 912. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll next look for a motion to adopt ordinance 912.
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Buda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
No.
Ms., you said no?
No.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Can I ask a adjacent question? Have we collected this 2% cannabis tax?
Yes, we've gotten some funds,
Yeah.
small, a couple $1,000. I don't know.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
The just as a point of reference, the ordinance also changes the manner in which we collect that as well, from monthly to quarterly. It's too small.
Yeah.
They can do it monthly.
Next, we have ordinance 913, second reading public hearing. This is for a correction of a water line easement.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, and State of New Jersey, vacating an existing 30-foot wide water line easement no longer needed for public purposes across Block 8, Lot 44.01 on the Hopewell Township Tax Map, and accepting the conveyance of a new 20-foot wide water line easement across said property.
Okay, this one is also a kind of companion with ordinance 2026-46 and our consent about an encroachment agreement. Would alter the location of an easement for one of our water lines to kind of correct the easement, which is the document that shows it's recorded with deeds that gives us the right to have the pipe, to actually have it line up with where the pipe is, because apparently it's not correct in the right location. I'll open the meeting to the public for public hearing. Questions, comments on ordinance 913? Seeing no one coming to the front and no hands raised, again, push the raise hand button if you'd like to speak. Seeing none for ordinance 913, I will take a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 913.
Motion closed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
I'll next take a motion to adopt ordinance 913.
I'll move.
Do I have a second? Oh, thank you.
Mr. Buda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Next, ordinance 914. This is first reading. Public hearing on this ordinance would be at our April meeting. Reggie, if you could read this one by title.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, New Jersey, regarding alcoholic beverage control and amending chapter 5 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
This we had been monitoring and had received requests to alter our town code to match the relatively new state statute that allows certain types of theaters to have liquor licenses. Excited to have the interest in this in town and to, I think, start the process of getting that together. Point of clarification, I guess maybe to Reggie, I know Lisa had sent several versions. Perhaps I'll seek a motion that did ones with like numbers in it, right? Do you know where we landed, like the version that we actually have? Is it limited in number of licenses, or is it, I believe we were taking out the.
It's open.
It's no limit.
Okay, got it. Just want to make sure, because there were several versions floating around. With that, I'll take a motion to introduce ordinance 914. Again, there'll be a public hearing at our April meeting.
I'll introduce.
I'll second.
Mr. Buda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Next is our consent agenda. It's a big list, but I'll ask if anyone would like to pull anything out for further discussion, or if you've got a brief discussion or question for our administrator. Maybe we'll pause and do that now. And maybe even also before we do that, I'll ask our planner again. A big chunk of these, I think 42 through 45 are various elements of our affordable housing plan. I don't know if you have to go through each one of them, but if you just give a brief overview, if you could.
Sure, so 42 is the appointing an administrative agent. This is a function of the affordable housing program where you have to have a certified agent to help administer those units. There's a lot that goes into that. And so that's a resolution. I'm appointing an agent. The second one is appointing a municipal housing liaison. Again, another position we've always had, but it shifts with staff. And that's really just a contact person that somebody can call and say, hey, I'm interested. Who do I go talk to? 44 is endorsing the updated affordable housing plan. We had to amend, tweak our plan from June to meet our consent order that gave us our compliance. And so the planning board did that last month. And now the governing body is just endorsing that amendment. And then the last one is the affirmative marketing plan. This is another state regulation. Units have to be very specifically marketed, advertised, income qualified. And so this is something that the administrative agent usually does, but we have to have sort of a template on file to show how that process works.
Thank you. Any other questions or items people like to pull out for more full discussion? Absent that, I'll take a motion to approve in bulk resolutions 2026-35 through 46. Wait a second.
Who was second? We gotta separate the men so I can. Mr. Buda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Next, I'll take a motion to approve our bill list and claims for payment. Do I have a second? So Deb was first. We need
Need a second.
a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Funk.
Mr. Buda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Let's just note again, I want to thank our new appointees to the Economic Development Committee and the Rec Committee. Thankful for all of our volunteers in town. Next, we will our last public comment opportunity. We'll open the meeting to the public for those in person or following that online for questions or comments at this time.
Dave getting up. Let me see.
Dave, are you getting up or are we just?
So seeing no one
Excited
in,
for public comment.
seeing none in person or no hands raised online, I'll take a motion to close the second public portion of the meeting. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Next, I will take a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, again, noting that our next meeting is on Monday, 6th. All in favor?
All right, yes.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.